de Rosier at Mines and Money in London. I'm joined here today by Paul. Hi, Paul. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you.
Well, Paul, not many people know you, basically, that are going to be watching the video right now. So for the viewers, can you introduce yourself and the company you're working for?
Yes, I'm Paul Rankin, geologist and analyst with VSA Capital here in London. VSA being a sell-side broking and corporate advisory firm that's been established for earlier as much as 30 years ago, but under current ownership since 2010.
Okay, very interesting. So first of all, you said a few words that I don't know if all the institutional are used to, but maybe retail or not. Can you first tell us a little more about what's a sell side?
Sell side means that we don't manage other people's money, but what we do is we help connect investors with mining firms in order to get projects and mines financed.
Okay, so basically you have a very big footprint in everything that is done in mining commodities. Where geographically are you spread? I mean, you're based in London, but the projects you work for, are they all over the world, or do you have specific regions you prefer?
Our firm has been completely agnostic, both in commodity and geography, so we've had clientele all across the world in all kinds of different commodities, both industrials as well as precious metals.
Well, so this is very great to hear, because right now it's obviously commodities in general is a very interesting conversation right now, that everyone's having a lot of nationalism, a lot of talks about bringing back production within their countries and so on. You're located in UK. UK has seen a big mining history, big legacy that has been scattered all over the world, but also maybe if you can tell us what's the climate right now about mining, specifically in the UK?
It's essentially in revival is the best way to put it, I would say, and that's because the UK, from an economic standpoint, from a manufacturing standpoint, it needs to revive its own domestic industry just to make itself less dependent upon foreign powers for all the materials that otherwise keep its industry going. And one of the things that's important is that there is a good scientific legacy here with technological advancement that's available to them if they just get it going at scale again.
Absolutely. So this is great to hear, because obviously that means I will go on a leap here and talk of the AU plus UK together, kind of on a commodity scale of life, or Europe, let's call it, maybe easier. But there is really that we're feeling on the old continent. We're feeling that vibe of mining coming back, of having that legacy of countries that used to be big mining countries 40, 50, 60 years ago. All of a sudden, everything was forgotten, and now it's kind of it's boiling back. It's boiling back at the surface. And UK is one example. Austria may be one of them. Germany may be one of them, also coming back, that has that history, but trying to look up. So when you're looking out and you're looking outside of UK right now, what are the commodities clients that are approaching you, from where geography they are, and so what are kind of maybe the hot commodities, or the commodity that you see coming a lot more on your desk at the moment?
Certainly of interest to the EU, but coming across our table and things that we're focused on is the battery raw materials and those things which go into the midstream processing, both in chemistry but also in the technological construction of the equipment and so forth. For the battery chemicals, of course, it's things like graphite and lithium and vanadium and things like that, but also for the added materials which make things work better on an efficiency basis. That includes things like tin, for instance, which is also very important. And someplace like the UK is very well known for its tin history.
Absolutely. Well, it's fun that you're talking about tin, because obviously there is a big history in UK, and there is right now a company like, for example, First Tin, which is trying to rebuild a historical mine on German ground, German sector. So a lot of maybe forgotten commodities that might be very interesting for investors to look at, and not just focus on lithium, gold, cobalt, and graphite, but there's a lot of longer list. And from that, the AU just released their AU Critical Metal Act and policy and so on. So we do see a lot of more of those coming. But do you see project coming also from the US to try to come into the UK market? Project from Canada trying to come to the UK market and do his business with you, or is really the pressure right now from the Europe and UK really enough for you guys?
Well, Well, Europe realizes that despite its legacy for deposits like tin and tungsten and that sort of thing, it's not going to have enough of its own right domestically, even if they developed everything they have and can find. It won't be enough to support all of the manufacturing sector for things like automotive and the battery sector and electrification and things like that. So therefore, they will have to import a significant amount of material, both raw material, but also recycling as well. And that means they'll probably rely upon those which are political and economic allies, North America being a key one like that for Canada, Australia, USA.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, in their policy in the EU now, they're saying that they want 10% of the production being on the ground, 40% coming from recycling. So obviously recycling is what we can call mining 2.0. So basically it's the next evolution, more circular economy, more of maybe, because if we look at the projected number, the outlook of what's being needed in commodities versus what's being produced, the gap is so big that basically just mining itself, it seems like it's an unlikely scenario that it could be actually meeting that gap. Recycling will be a big part of that. And when you discussed about that, you discussed about technology earlier. Recycling is a big technological advancement that is very hard and that is proven a bit difficult. You also discussed when battery metals. So when you look at battery metals, do you include everything that comes from rare earth, lithium, cobalt, graphite, maybe sodium now because sodium batteries are coming, LFP, so iron ore, phosphate? I mean, where does it start and where does it end, battery metals?
The bottom line is it's a lot broader scale because, of course, there's the old technologies too, like nickel, cadmium batteries and lead, zinc batteries and things like that. Those are all still going to need to be in the batteries of the future as well. It's just that they're diversifying their use and component parts in the chemistries in a much greater way than previously.
And maybe looking a little in the future from now, without predicting prices of commodity, but do you think that there's going to be more and more pressure on the price, or do you think that on the opposite there's going to be more and more pressure on the supply and therefore price is going to rise? When you look at a project, it comes on your desk and you're like, okay, I have this commodity. How do you project price or so of a commodity, or how interesting it could be for the next 2-3 years? On which you base your economics, for example, on deciding on helping your company or not?
Well, first off, we don't look at 2 and 3 year horizon. That's for short-term trading.
Yeah.
For the policymakers and so forth, they need to be looking 5, 10, and 20 years out. And for the longer life projects to be out there, to be investable as well as being highly profitable, we're tending to try to look for those projects which are 5 to 15 years in the development cycle. That being said, we can see that there are various numbers of these commodities which are in short supply in the short term, and they will be ones where you'll be able to take both a commodity risk trade as well as a equity trade in those which will companies which will advance their projects in a forthright manner in a short period of time, and you'll end up with some significant price moves on shares in particular in that regard.
Absolutely, and this is very important, the difference in vision on the very long term, 20 years, which is obviously very difficult to predict or even to comprehend what the world of today will look in 20 years. More cars, less cars, autonomous driving, car sharing. There's a lot of things when you talk about, for example, cars and battery metals and so on. On battery also, everything is now coming with a battery, everything is electronic, both from the camera that's here, the microphone, the cell phone in our pockets. Our house are becoming battery also, our cars is becoming a battery that can also charge a house and go one direction or the other. So it has obviously to trigger a very interesting conversation to predict and to look at the future from the 10 and 20 years. Paul, it's been very, very interesting. Everyone wants to have more information about VSA and the work you guys do. How can they join you online, or where can they find more information?
Website vsacapital.com, very simple. You can also listen to us on Twitter. I put a little 5-minute Morning Miner podcast on there on Twitter every business day morning. morning. So.
Well, I guess this is a great thing. If you heard what you say, well, you can have a 5 minutes while you start your day, while you jumpstart, while you're eating your cereals. It's a good way. Just look at the website. Paul, thank you very much. It's been a great Minds and Money here in London. Temperature is amazing, and a great conversation always ease the day a lot.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.